Before the sun rises, you are already carrying the weight of a war that is not only fought with steel. You were told this road led to salvation. But every mile east demanded something from your body first. As a knight in the Crusades, your first enemy was not always the man waiting with a sword. It was heat, thirst, infection, hunger, and the slow betrayal of your own strength. And still, the army moved forward because turning back could destroy your honor before the enemy ever touched you. The Crusades were not one battle. They were generations of faith, politics, ambition, and survival colliding on the road to the Holy Land. Kings, nobles, priests, merchants, and desperate men all followed the same promise, but not for the same reason. For a night, the journey was supposed to prove courage. First, it stripped away comfort. Armor made you powerful for a charge. On the march, it made every step heavier. Under the eastern sun, metal did not feel heroic. It felt like a prison you had to keep wearing. You were expected to ride, fight, pray, obey, and keep moving, even when your body begged you to stop. The road to Jerusalem was not only sacred. It was a moving problem of food, water, horses, and time. One broken wagon could delay a column. One fouled well could weaken an army. Long before the enemy appeared, the campaign was already taking men from a march. To survive as a crusader knight, courage was only the beginning. You needed water, discipline, restraint, and luck. The battlefield was only the part people remembered. The real test began long before the first charge. Before a charge, fear had nowhere to hide. It sat in the saddle with you. Your horse could panic. Your formation could open. Your shield could be in the wrong place by inches. If you fell beneath the press of men and animals, noble birth meant nothing. A knight was trained to dominate open ground. But in the east, the ground itself fought back. Castles rose from cliffs. Cities hid behind walls. And every road could turn into a trap. Siege warfare was not a single moment of bravery. It was patience slowly turning into suffering. You waited under the walls while hunger sharpened tempers and sickness moved faster than orders. The walls did not need to attack you. They only needed to remain standing. And when the assault finally came, survival narrowed to seconds. Inside the gate, battle changed shape. It became smoke, stone, corners, and confusion. A knight trained for open ground could become helpless in streets designed to break an army apart. Every doorway could hide a threat. Every rooftop could turn the fight against you. In a siege assault, courage mattered, but confusion decided who made it out alive. You could survive the charge, then lose your life to a wound no one truly knew how to treat. Medieval medicine could clean a wound, bind it, pray over it, and then wait. Pain was expected. Weakness was dangerous. Fear was something men swallowed in silence. Yet the campaign did not pause for broken men. The road simply demanded more. Orders came from men who saw kingdoms on maps, not the wounds inside boots. The Crusades were fought for holy places, but also for power, trade routes, reputation, and control. To a knight, those motives arrived as hunger, orders, and another impossible wall. Climbing a siege ladder meant moving toward danger with no room to defend yourself. Above you waited stones, arrows, fire, and men just as determined to survive. Below you was a crowd. If you slipped, there was nowhere safe to fall. This was the brutal mathematics of siege warfare. One wall, thousands of lives, no clean victory. But the Crusades were not only fought outside cities. They were fought inside the mind. A knight could carry guilt as heavily as mail. He was told the war was sacred, but the suffering around him was painfully human. Survival meant obeying men, symbols, and promises larger than your own life. And every promise became harder to believe when the food began to disappear. A hungry army was still an army, but it became harder to command, harder to trust, and harder to hold together. Disease did what enemy commanders could not. It slipped through every rank without raising a banner. No title, armor, or oath could protect you from bad water and an infected wound. The most frightening deaths were often the quiet ones, far from banners, songs, and clashing steel. Still, the road continued. In the Crusades, stopping could be almost as dangerous as fighting. The farther you moved into the east, the more the land itself seemed to change the rules. The air was hotter, the distances longer, and the silence more dangerous than rumor. A European knight was trained for fields, forests, castles, and cold campaigns. This was something else. Survival required a different rhythm. Move early, rest hard, and never trust the empty horizon. Because the enemy did not always wait behind walls. Light cavalry could strike, vanish, and return before heavy knights could force a decisive fight. Your armor made you formidable up close. But speed belonged to someone else. A charge could win glory. A careless charge could leave you surrounded. In this world, discipline was not a virtue. It was a shield you could not afford to drop. Break formation, and the desert could swallow you one man at a time. But the Crusader states had their own answer to fear. They built it in stone. Fortresses became islands of control in a land too vast to hold by force alone. From those towers, knights watched roads, valleys, caravans, and threats moving like shadows. A castle could protect you from arrows. It could not protect you from time. Weeks inside stone walls could turn safety into another kind of prison. You waited for supplies, reinforcements, orders, and news that might already be too late. Communication moved at the speed of horses, ships, storms, and survival. By the time help arrived, a fortress could already be starving. Outside the walls, enemies could wait with patience sharper than steel. A siege did not only attack the body, it attacked certainty. You began to wonder whether endurance was holiness, duty, or simply fear of collapse. And sometimes, survival demanded leaving the walls behind. The road between castles was where confidence went to die. A ravine, a dry riverbed, a ruined village. Any place could become a trap. In the Crusades, danger rarely announced itself. It waited in silence. By the time you saw movement on the ridge, the trap might already be closing. A patrol survived by reading the land before the land turned against them. But fear travels faster than orders. One shout, one arrow, one frightened horse could turn discipline into chaos. And chaos was the one enemy armor could not stop. If you lived through the ambush, you still had to find the army again. The sun became a judge, measuring every mistake in sweat and thirst. You might pray for spring, a village, a caravan, anything that proved the world had not ended. But relief in the Crusades was never simple. Water could save you or betray you. A knight could survive battle and still be defeated by what he drank. That was what made this world so brutal. Danger wore many faces. There was the danger of enemies, the danger of leaders, the danger of believing too much, and there was the danger of realizing too late that survival and victory were not the same thing. The Holy Land was not a single prize. It was a landscape of competing memories. For Christians, Muslims, and Jews, these stones carried histories deeper than any army. To fight, there was to step into a story already centuries old, and every generation believed it had the right to decide what those stones meant. That is why the Crusades still disturb us. They turned faith, fear, and ambition into architecture and scars. A knight might come seeking redemption. He might leave carrying things no confession could erase. If he returned home, he did not return unchanged. The war followed him in scars, memories, debts, and silence. So could you survive as a knight in the Crusades? Maybe, if you could endure heat, hunger, disease, obedience, fear, and the weight of your own choices. But survival would not make you victorious. It would only make you a witness. Because in the Crusades, the hardest thing to survive was not always the battlefield. It was what the battlefield left behind.